Hey, what's going on, gang? Nate on the Stone here. Welcome back to my channel and to the 67th episode of The Rolling Stone. Summer is passing us by. I am recording this on the last golden day of July. August is right on the other side of the bridge now. It has come upon us, and September, October, November, December, only 5 months left in the year, which I don't think that anybody is going to be sad to see go. It's really strange. I was just thinking about it this morning. When 2020 came upon us, last year, New Year's, we all thought that this was going to be sort of a really new beginning. It was the beginning of a new decade, right? The sky was the limit. Everything was going to be great. And then the coronavirus happened. George Floyd was killed in Minneapolis. And then, of course, the insurrections happened. And now I think people are thinking, my God, I can't wait for 2021. But on that note, be very careful of what you wish for, gang. Not to be Johnny Raincloud again, but sometimes, what you think when you think that you've hit the bottom of the barrel, you haven't even gotten halfway down. And at this time next year, the end of July 2021, we might all be sitting here thinking, gosh, I wish we could go back to the simple, good old days of 2020. Who knows? Who knows? Maybe, the sky will rain down gold and silver on all of us, and the rivers will turn to wine in 2021. Who knows? I'm not a prophet. Or, it could start raining toads in February of 2021 on top of the continued insurrections and statue toppling and the continued deaths by the Chinese coronavirus. So that is just to say, who knows what's going to happen. But one thing that we can be sure of is that the conservative American movement will continue to snaffle away all opportunity to actually make a difference in this country, to actually put its foot down, open its mind, and actually say, okay, what can we actually do to improve things, to make things work? Which brings us, actually, coincidentally enough, to our first story, which isn't really a story, one particular story or one particular event, but it is my reaction to a trend that I have seen, not just this past week, but the past couple of weeks, as a matter of fact, which is this. Up until this point, what has been the inexplicable demand of conservatives for the public schools to open this fall. This has actually been a very strong talking point in conservative circles as of late. So just to give a couple of examples, one of the most prominent of the new wave of conservative writers, influencers, and so-called thinkers, that was mean of me. Forgive me. I am sorry. I'm in a mood today. But regardless of that, Matt Walsh, the Daily Wire's Matt Walsh, he actually called the members of the DC Teachers Union crybabies because the DC Teachers Union got wind of a proposed plan to open up the DC public schools, and then they performed what can only be termed a stunt. Okay, they started putting out body bags in front of the schools. This is actually what Walsh said in the beginning of a piece that he wrote for the Daily Wire, a piece which I do not have complete access to because the Daily Wire, in its infinite wisdom, has decided that the pieces by its big people, Shapiro, Clavin, Knowles, Walsh, should be behind a paywall. Never mind that you're actually trying to change the culture. Never mind that you're actually trying to convince people of the rightness of your position and your arguments. Damn it, money has to be made somewhere. Never mind that money is already being made. There has to be more money made in this moment of crisis. So, I was only able to get this beginning, but this is what Walsh said at the beginning of his piece. Quote, striking a careful balance between absurd melodrama and shameless self-aggrandizement, one of the body bags was accompanied by a cardboard gravestone that said, "Rip favorite teacher." Others read, "Killed in the line of duty, and how many will you let die?" So in other words, Matt Walsh has been saying that it's completely ridiculous to have the schools closed this fall. Open them! For goodness sake, open them. Allie Beth Stuckey is another prominent voice in the new right who has articulated this same narrative. She, on Twitter on July 29th, said this, quote, "Shout out to all the awesome teachers who are eager to teach your kids this fall. Y'all are amazing, and I am thankful for you. I'm sorry there are so many awful people in your industry who ruin it for everyone else." End quote. In other words, it's only the terrible people who are teachers. It's only the terrible teachers who want the schools to open. Okay, all the good teachers, they want the schools to open. They're on our side, don't you know? Here was a headline, too, from The Blaze. Headline, Republicans want schools open, Democrats want them closed. Polls show. Quote, that was from July 24th. And I could give other examples, but that's just to give you a sample, a taste. In other words, the new talking point on the right when it comes to the coronavirus, when it comes to public education in general, is that the public schools need to be opened in the fall. Because don't you know, parents have to go to work, and they can't do work and have their kids home at the same time. Kids need to be socialized. Kids need structure in their day. Think of the children. Now, what makes this so aggravating for me, and what should make it aggravating for all of you, is that the conservative movement here in the United States has for years now lambasted and ridiculed, rightly so, I must point out here, rightly so, ridiculed and lambasted the public education system that exists here in the United States because they have rightly said that it is a sewer. That's the only word to describe the public education system that America has at this moment. Closed or open. It's a sewer. Let me just point out two major ways that it is so, okay? In the first place, it doesn't educate American kids. If you send your kid, if you're married, if you have a family, or if you have kids, and you trundle them off to the local public school thinking, you know what, I've done my duty as a parent, I'm sending my kids to school, they have all the supplies they need, they've got, they're going to have lunches provided and everything, they're going to get the best education that there is because, damn it, America is, a superpower, the lone superpower. We've got this. They're going to get a great education. Ha. You've been lied to. And you probably already know that you've been lied to. But just in case you didn't, or in case, you didn't want to listen to that subconscious voice in your mind, here are a couple of statistics. The Nation's report card, which keeps track of what percentage of American students are proficient in different topics, history, reading, math, science, etc. It, a few weeks ago, released the numbers for 2019, okay? What percentage of American students were proficient in which topics in 2019? Are you ready for this? You might want to sit down. 41% of fourth graders are proficient in math. Less than 50% of fourth graders are proficient in math. And you want to know what's even better. 41% of fourth graders being proficient in math. That is a total growth of, get ready for it, a whopping 1 percentage point from 2017. In 2017, only 40% of fourth graders were proficient in math. So in 2 years, the world's lone superpower, the education system in the world's lone superpower, has managed to grow 1 percentage point, get 1 more percentage point of fourth graders proficient in math. Okay, I guess take your victories wherever you can, take the good news wherever you can. However, The good news immediately evaporates when you continue, because 41% of fourth graders are proficient in math, but only 34% of eighth graders are proficient in math. So as the kids are actually going through the grades and progressing higher and higher through the education system, they're actually getting dumber. Fewer eighth graders are proficient in math than fourth graders. And this is the same trend that you see in topic after topic after topic. So just to read off a few more. In reading, 35% of fourth graders are proficient in reading. Only 34% of eighth graders are proficient in reading. 20% of fourth graders are proficient in history. 15% of eighth graders are proficient in history. And get this, only 12% of high school seniors are proficient in history. The education system is a giant stupidifier, almost. The longer that you stay in it, the stupider that you get. 21% of fourth graders are proficient in geography. 25% of eighth graders are proficient in geography. That is actually the exception that proves the rule. As you move further along in geography, you actually know more. 38% of fourth graders are proficient in science, and only 34% are proficient in science when you get to the eighth grade. This is a national embarrassment. Let me just say that full front and center. If America was still the lone superpower in the world, this would be an embarrassment to die over. And I say if, because China has actually snaffled that title right out from under our very noses. Excuse me. But at the very most, even if the United States isn't a superpower anymore, it is still one of the major world powers. These numbers are still an embarrassment. You have European countries, diddly little European countries, whose students are better educated, whose citizenry is better educated than Americans are educated. And to bring up another utilitarian point, how can you remain a major world power when the next generation of your citizens is a mass of marching morons? How can that be? It can't. It's impossible. So, if the public education system just failed to educate our kids, that would be bad enough, but it does something even worse. It goes that extra step because it also indoctrinates them. Did you know, for example, that the public education districts in, for example, Chicago, Buffalo, New York, and Washington, D.C., they are going to start teaching the New York Times' 1619 project, the bogus 1619 project, which is no history, light on the history, heavy on the propaganda. Yeah, and they're not just going to start teaching that at, for example, the 8th grade level or at the freshman high school level. They start teaching that day one of kindergarten. From kindergarten through 12th grade, these school districts, what they are doing is teaching your children, teaching our countrymen, the future of our country. They are teaching them to hate their country, hate their heritage, hate their culture. They're teaching them, they are planting the seeds that will make them tomorrow's insurrectionists, like we're seeing in New York, Atlanta, Los Angeles, Chicago, Portland, Seattle, Kansas City, Omaha, Minneapolis, again and again and again and again and again. That's what they're training them to do. But it gets even better. If you want one more example, look, for example, at the madness that is sex education. And I'm going to bring up specifically California here. California, a bill in 2016 passed called AB 329, otherwise known as the California Healthy Youth Act, which is an Orwellian name for a bill if ever I heard one, because it aims to teach K through 12 students how to ward off HIV and other STDs, to teach healthy attitudes towards sexual orientation, gender, and relationships, and to promote understanding of sexuality as a normal part of human development. In other words, your kids won't know squat about history, math, they won't be able to read and write, they won't know much about geography or science, but damn it, they are sure going to know all 72 different genders and how to treat those 72 different genders with respect. And I mean, here you go. You've got a kid in kindergarten, he might not know his ABCs, he might not know that 2 plus 2 equals 4, because don't you know that's racist now, but he'll know how to not contract an STD, because that's what a 6-year-old, a 5 to a 6-year-old needs to know, how to actually, do the devil's tango, but not get sick from it. Isn't that sweet? This is the system that conservatives and the conservative movement for years and years now has whined about, complained about, ranted against, beat its chest against, and I was right with it. I was like, yeah, we need to do something. We need to do something. And here now we actually had a chance to do something. We had a chance to do something. The coronavirus, one of the silver linings could have been that with the schools closed, the conservative movement in this country could have looked around and said, looked and seen, again, how bad public education is, and said, okay, let's actually put our heads together. Let's think. How can we make education? How can we completely reform education? We can't reform the public schools. We can't just leave it at school choice. How can we actually recreate education in this country to make it work for the students, to make it work for the families, to make it work for the country, so that students, families, and country can all flourish like we're supposed to as human beings? That's what they could have done. But they didn't. Instead, they are saying, nope, the schools have to open. It is your patriotic duty to open. And for the longest time, I could not wrap my head around it, gang. I could not figure out why would a movement that knows what the public education system is like, has known what it's like for years, why would it suddenly flip-flop on this issue? And I finally figured it out. And it's all there in that headline from The Blaze that I read out to you. Republicans want schools open. Democrats want them closed. And there's your explanation right there. Because the left has said that the schools need to stay closed, the right is saying, nope, the schools need to open. But it's more than just partisan contradictoriness. I think that the right now has to have the schools open, because if the schools remain closed, what the right is terrified of is that this will be seen as an indicator that the left was right about the coronavirus from the beginning. We had to shut everything down. We had basically to freeze everything in place. That was the correct course of action to take. And of course, the right has numerous problems about that. I have a couple of problems with that, which I won't get into right now. But the main point of the issue is that the conservative movement flubbed. It snaffled the ball away simply to make a political point, because it doesn't want the left to be seen as being right about the coronavirus. The right now is investing a lot of its talking points into saying that education needs to open, schools need to open, because it can't afford to allow the left to be seen as being right on anything, especially during an election, when you didn't even have to do it. That's what frustrates me. Sorry if I'm getting into a little bit of a rant, gang, but this really irks me, because I will repeat myself here. The right had a golden opportunity to actually reimagine what education could look like, so that it could be true, good, and beautiful. Like I said, make it work for students, families, and the country. Instead, it didn't. It shows that the conservative movement in this country has no imagination. It has none. It cannot think outside of the box. All it has are these dull, stale, moldy talking points. That's all that it has. And it stays there. That's the only thing that it can do. All it has are these talking points that it gives out to people day in and day out. And in addition to that, it can't think past its own nose. Because, okay, so what if you win a political victory right now and you get the schools to reopen? Assuming that they don't close down a couple of weeks later. How is that going to help you 5 years from now? 10 years from now? When all the students who are now being taught by the public education have fully embraced the 1619 Project, the madness of progressive nihilistic sex education. How is that going to help anybody? How is that going to help you and your movement? How is that going to help us, everyone who has to live in this society together? And how is that going to help the country? That might be something that you want to think about before you immediately just set yourself up in opposition to the other side. I'm not saying don't set yourself up in opposition, but you have to do it imaginatively and you have to do it smartly. Something which the right now is very bad at. That is story number 1.